My name is Casey Carrillo. I'm an assistant director for the University of Arizona Center for Innovation. I work very closely with Amanda Buchanan, who is our program manager and is really overseeing all of our Department of Energy programs. So today we have Sonia Vanot with us, but before we dive into her presentation, I'm going to go ahead and just run through a couple of slides. UACI, or the University of Arizona Center for Innovation, we are one of 20 other power connectors. Power connectors work with NREL and Department of Energy in supporting different programs such as the SBIR, DOE SBIR-STTR programs, as well as different American-made challenges. So UACI is supporting this current SBIR-STTR effort, and we are also a power connector for the American-made Solar Prize as well. Now, as you can see, there's power connectors across the nation, so we're really excited to be a part of this amazing group. All right, and so specifically power connectors supporting this current SBIR-STTR release with the Department of Energy. You have UACI, you also have the Arrowhead Center located in New Mexico, the Clean Energy Business Network, EFN, which is Entrepreneur Futures Network, and ADL. These are all power connectors that are supporting this program and this effort. So feel free to reach out to any of us as we're here to help support you throughout this process. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Sonia. Sonia is one of our subject matter experts with the University of Arizona Center for Innovation. And we're really excited to have her as a part of our team and have her be a part of this program support. So Sonia, I'll go ahead and toss it over to you.
Hey, thank you, Casey. Yeah, I've been supporting the UACI now for several years as one of their subject matter experts when it comes to non-dilutive funding, specifically non-dilutive funding with the SBIR program. Today, we're going to be talking mostly about the current DOE solicitation and writing a letter of intent. But my background, I'm a software engineer. Systems software engineer, and I'm also an entrepreneur. I have funded several companies, and mostly I focus on commercialization. Next slide. Okay, so today we'll be talking mostly about the letter of intent and giving an overview and what is the appropriate content, and with an example, how to do submissions and registrations needed. Next. In the past webinars, we've discussed about the SBIR-STTR program, but just a very high-level overview. This program was started in 1982. It's a multi-billion-dollar program now. It's a non-diluted funding provided to the small technology companies. The goals are just to foster the economy, specifically as it relates to small businesses and the minority and socially, economically disadvantaged business. That was the goals. They still are, but mostly any small business can apply for it as long as they qualify. Next slide. So there's two types of this non-dilutive funding, the SBIR, which is the Small Business Innovation Research Program, and the Small Business Technology Transfer, or STTR, which came shortly after the SBIR. The biggest difference is for the STTR, you will require to have the involvement of a nonprofit research institution, and not all agencies provide STTR funding support. All right, next slide. If you look at the current DOE solicitation, this table here summarizes the major milestones and dates. So the topics already have been issued. The webinars have been made. What we're still waiting is for the FOA to be issued. And if we just make sure, I was just on the SBIR site, and the FOA should be released on December 12th, not December 16th. So we'll make a change to that before we made the slides available to you. But the letter of intent is due January 3rd. And you need to submit a letter of intent if you want to submit a full proposal. So just be aware of that. So that's why we're here today. And they'll only give you feedback if it's non-responsive. And that should happen more or less towards the end of January. And the applications will be due by February 21st. There's no exceptions to that. And then, you know, they're due before midnight. And don't wait till the end because the systems can be overloaded or, you know, Murphy's Law, something goes wrong and you can't submit. So I encourage you to submit before the 21st if possible. And they'll notify you somewhere around the mid-May. And keep in mind that that date might vary. And it might be slightly after. And now I'm looking at the solicitation. The webinar for the FOA would be on December 16th. The FOA will be issued on December 12th. Next slide. Okay, so this is just the typical application award timelines for the DOE. And as you'll note, the topics come out like a month before the funding opportunity announcement or FOA. And then after the FOA comes out, you have about half a month to submit your letter of intent, and then another month to submit your application. So you have about 3 months, 4 months of since the topics come out till the applications are due. Typically, they're going to take a couple, about 3-4 months to review your solicitation. Then if they like what they see, there's a period to negotiate, which could be a couple of weeks to a couple of months. And then a phase 1 award is 6 to 12 months. A phase 2 award will be up to 24 months. The amounts awarded vary from agency, sometimes at the topic level, but typically they're between 200 and 250,000 for a phase 1, 6 to 12 month project, and about 1.1 million to a little bit over, or maybe around 1.6 million, depends again on the topic. Next slide. For this year, our connector is going to, again, be focusing on the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office, or EERE. Those topics are topics 10 to 21. And specifically, our power connector is focusing on water and solar, right? And we went over those topics in last week's webinar, and I believe that webinar is already available, as should be the overview on the SBIR program. So the application process requires you to have registrations, of course, on sam.gov and on grants.gov. And you don't need a DUNS number now. Right now, you need a UEI, and that will be assigned to you as part of your SAM.gov application process. And keep in mind that it takes a lot of time to do that application, not filling it out, but receiving your UEI and being registered. So you would need to start that like ASAP before you can even submit anything to the any of the federal grants or contracts solicitations. You also will need to apply on PAMS. That's how you that's the Portfolio Analysis and Management System, and that's how you submit your letter of intent. And unfortunately, the FOA, or Funding Opportunity Announcement, is not out yet. And so we don't know specifically if there are any changes to the instructions. And we'll be making an adjustment if needed to this the slides, at least, because the webinar is being recorded. But if there's any changes on the FOA that affect the slides, we will be making those changes. Next slide. Okay, so if we're going to description of what a letter of intent is, or LOI. It is required in the process of applying for an SBIR-STTR with the DOE. And you have to submit by that January 3rd deadline. If possible, do it as soon as possible, because you don't want to be left doing this over the holidays, because it's right there when we finish the New Year's, right? So, but the primary purpose is basically to know who they need to have for reviewers once those proposals are going to be submitted and reviewed. And it's due about 3 weeks after the FOA has been released. And another purpose for it is also to make sure that you're responsive to the topic. So read the topic and read the solicitation and make sure that what you are adding in that letter of intent is responsive to the topic. Most topics, if there's areas that they don't want you to submit an application for, they will let you know. But that's also why each of the topics provides you with either a topic author or an email address. When in doubt, send them an email. Ask if it's not clear on the topic description, if your innovation would be non-responsive. And as I mentioned earlier, they will notify you if your idea is non-responsive, and if you don't hear anything, then continue submitting or writing your proposal. Since the FOA is not out yet, just make a note that right now from last FOA, you could submit up to 10 letters of intent, basically 10 applications per solicitation release. And each idea or innovation has to be very unique and different. So don't submit essentially the same thing 10 times. And this is a question I am asked a lot. Can we submit more than one proposal? The answer is yes, but I'm not sure yet if it will be 10 or less. I doubt they'll let you submit more, but anyways, I just would caution you to read the solicitation when it comes out. Next slide. Okay, so the typical content of letter of intent, and then again, keep in mind, this was from last year, is you need to identify yourself, your company, your address, who's the business official, who's the principal investigator, and their contact information. If you are partnering with other companies or subcontractors or consultants or a research institution, for example, with an STTR, you need to list all that information. And you need to let them know that you're submitting a phase 1 application and that it's an STTR or SBIR. When we reviewed the topics last week, you'll notice that on each topic header, they're going to tell you if it's only SBIR, only STTR, or that you could do both. So keep in mind that. Don't submit an STTR to something that doesn't take STTRs, and don't submit SBIR for those that say STTR only. You will have to have a title for your proposal, and you will have to specify which topic and subtopic. Okay, and subtopics are the letters A through whatever they have under each of the topic. Typically, you will not be allowed to put more than 500 words, and it has to be non-proprietary, and you have to provide sufficient information on this letter of intent so that they could know whether it's responsive and that they will understand what's your innovation and what you're going to be doing so that they could look for appropriate reviewers for your proposal. Next slide. So as I mentioned, it must not exceed 500 words, must not exceed 2 pages, and that includes all the header information such as your company address, points of contact, your subcontractors, in addition to the abstract component with less than 500 words, don't exceed the 2 pages. You could put nice figures, but keep in mind no more than 2 pictures, no more than 2 pages. And clearly explain why you're proposing this R&D and how it's responsive to the topic. And provide sufficient technical detail about what is it that you're going to be doing during your research and development. And this is very important because you want to have the appropriate subject matter experts reviewing your proposal, right? So yes, you only have 500 words, but that's why it's not easy to write those 500 words. You need to make sure that whoever reviews it understands what you're going to be doing and what your innovation is. And again, don't include anything proprietary because this will become public information. The technical abstract and your proposal itself have to be substantially the same. So this is important because they don't want you to submit a technical abstract that's responsive, but then you change your idea or you change how you're going to go about it. And then suddenly you're proposing something different. Then that's not right. And they'll probably notice because the reviewers will be comparing your abstract against what you're proposing. There will not be a letter of encouragement in response to your LOI, just one that is telling you if you're not responsive. Next. Okay, so this is very generic. It has nothing to do with the current solicitation topics, but it's just an idea of what an abstract would look like. So have at least 2 paragraphs, one that clearly explains what you're proposing to do and why you're responsive to the topic, and another paragraph or 2 that explains what you're going to be doing. So why you're doing it and what you're doing. Basically, those are the 2 W's, why and what. And I like to, it depends on how good you are in writing and your wordsmithing. I like to start always, well, what is the problem, right? And it has to be something specific to what that topic wants you to solve. And that's where you make the connection, right? So here's the problem. This is, how it relates to the topic. And here's my innovation. And this is how I'm going to be solving it. And there's an iPhone. Okay, thank you. All right. Any questions so far? Look at my notes here. No questions. Okay. There's few slides, but a lot to digest. And once the FOA comes out and you have the FOA out, the webinars listened to, the topic descriptions, our webinars put together, go through all of that. See if there's a fit. And then we're here for you during office hours. So once you're able to put all those pieces together, chat with us. Okay. If there's no questions, we're almost to the end of this particular session today, but let's go to the next slide.
Sorry, I put a question in the chat.
Oh, okay.
I was wondering, do you need to have your sam.gov account and everything straightened out before you submit the LOI, or can you submit the LOI and then get all the accounts straightened out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you don't need Sam to do PAMs. But like I said, sometimes things change as FOAs come out. And so as you can see on this slide, you don't need the prior registrations, but maybe the FOA will have different instructions for you. But typically you could submit your LOI on the PAM system, and then in parallel, or you might have already applied for SAM and you're waiting for it, then you could at least get that out of the way and have the ability to submit a proposal once you have cleared out all your other registrations.
Thank you.
And yeah, and make sure that you submit it as a PDF. And there probably are going to be more instructions for you on the website and on the FOA. Next slide.
I just have a comment. I found out the hard way on the SAM.gov that if you've had a prior registration that's been deactivated, you have to completely resubmit over. I had done that. I thought I activated mine in November, and I went and checked on it yesterday, and eventually I found documentation that said, no, that ain't gonna work. So I had to resubmit all over, and it wasted a bunch of time because I thought I was reactivating the whole account.
Yeah, I just reactivated mine a couple months ago, and I did it even a month before it expired because I had been hearing so many stories of problems with either addresses or reactivations or new registrations. So I kind of panicked a bit. So I went and re-registered mine sooner than I didn't let it lapse. And it took me about half hours, and then I crossed my fingers because basically it was essentially the same. Nothing had changed for me. But then I crossed my fingers because I was so worried. But mine went through without any problems. But I do know that if you change your address or change owners or add new people or things like that, there could be delays even in your reactivation. And I did not let mine expire, so expire might require more time. So don't let it lapse. It doesn't hurt. Do it now. Yes, it will take you half an hour to an hour to just essentially submit the same info. But thanks, Dan, for bringing it to our attention. So Ed has another question. I form a split of small business entity known as XXX, but never registered it in PAMS. However, it is do business as YY, which is the preferred public domain name. How should I register in PAMS? That is a very good question. I would register the one that in PAMS that you're going to be submitting the proposal with. If the do business as YYY is essentially the other one, I think there's a way in SAM to make the connection, but they have to have the same tax ID number. If they're different, you have to use the same one. Does it make sense, Ed?
Nope.
No. If you have two companies with different tax ID numbers, those are essentially two different businesses, and you have to choose which one you're going to be submitting your proposal with. Okay, so you should be the same on SAM.gov. I believe there's a way where you could put the doing business as. Not being an expert with SAM, what I recommend is that you contact your local PTAC or SBDC. They are very good, and they do this almost on a daily basis. They would probably be the best people to give you advice on the SAM.gov and also help you if you have any issues.
There is a field for DBA when you register in SAM.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. I've never used it, so that's why I'm not the expert on it. But I felt I had seen it. So, Ed, I think that you will be able to use it because it makes sense if there's only one tax ID, right? And okie dokie, let me close my window here. Too much light. All right, next. All right, this is just one slide going into what we're going to be discussing in upcoming webinars. So when you're looking at a full application, you're going to be looking at about, there's several documents you're going to have to prepare. The project narrative, which is going to be about 15 pages, and keep in mind they're going to give you a word limit. And the phase 2 is about 20 pages also with word limit. And I'll keep on giving the disclaimer. The new FOA might have some changes. Keep in mind that there was just recently a reauthorization. So some things will be could be different in the FOA. And then you're going to be submitting a budget online as well as a budget justification. You're going to have key personnel. So you're going to have to provide a bio sketch or a resume for each of these folks. And they have to be listed on your budget and budget justification. And the DOE likes commercialization plans. So you're going to have to submit another document for that. They're usually 2-3 pages long. And if you're submitting a phase 2, they could be even longer. And there's going to be content for you to follow for those commercializations plans. There's the SBIR-STTR information form, which is a bunch of series of questions to make sure you haven't committed fraud, that your address is the same, that you're certifying being a small business, and so on, and a data management plan. Next slide. So if you look at support programs along the path for commercialization. So in a typical process from idea to commercializing, you have an idea, you prove it, you create a prototype, you develop your IP, you market it, and you sell it, right? So in order to support that process, the SBIR STTR program, and specifically the DOE, has different programs to support you along that life of your idea and concept to commercialize to the market. So as part of phase 1, you're going to have phase 0 assistance. So make sure that if you need phase 0 assistance, you apply for it. There's more on another slide on that. They give you the topic webinars. You can use national laboratories as resources or as partners. And then you have the funding opportunities. They have learning centers. They have applications resources. They have the power connectors that Casey talked about in one of the earlier slides. But then you also now have the commercialization assistance program. You have the Energy I-Core, which was developed based on the original NSF I-Core program, which is customer discovery and value proposition. And then you have the principal investigator meetings and diversity supplements. So you're not alone in this process, right? The key is to write a really strong proposal, have a really good idea, and win that, at least that phase 1, right? To get you going. Next slide. So another thing that the government provides is what's called technical and business assistance, and DOE supports TABA. Not every agency does. And this is another way to help you with your commercialization process. And so for phase 1, you can apply up to $6,500, and for phase 2, up to $50,000. And there's a whole bunch of vendors that can help you do that. I've been doing this for years, so if you want to know more about it, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how I can support you. Any questions? Well, thanks, David.
Sonia, do you have contact information listed?
Yeah, the last slide will have some contact on.
Thank you.
So Ed has a common question. My projected STTR partner has 2 active DOE contract awards, one in its final year and a new one. Does that help, hurt, or neutral regarding the outcome of the submitted DOE? I don't think it hurts. What you'll probably find yourself having to do is disclose if you have any existing awards or pending awards. So the government doesn't like to fund duplicate things or double dipping. So they want to make sure that you are not double dipping. And so if they're substantially different, make it clear. If there's anything in common, also make it clear so that you can explain how you're going to be leveraging it. Does that answer your question, Ed?
Just the waterproof bed. Because I actually judged they must have, because I looked at 2 beds and they were like for men.
I can't hear you well. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm going to assume I answered your question because I couldn't hear your answer very well. Yeah, Ed, the phase 0 is provided by Dawnbreaker. So it is excellent free support provided to everyone that applies. In the past, they used to have a limit of the first 100 applicants. I don't know if they have a limit now, but it is an excellent source that will help you either with your market research or reviewing your proposal or both. So if you can, please apply for it. It's very good. Next slide. Any other questions before we summarize? Okay, thank you, Amanda. So there is a limit, so apply right away, and they go fast. All right, so far we talked a little bit about the SBIR-STTR program. There was a previous webinar on just focusing on that, so take a look at that and listen. And, you know, we're always here for office hours if you have additional questions. We've gone over topics. Today we went over the letter of intent. Please start early because it takes many, many hours. Collaborative effort is about 100 to 200 hours. So start now. Make sure you read that FOA when it comes out. Read it in details. If you have questions, ask DOE, ask us. We're here to help you. Look at the webinars. Send an email to the topic author or to the email for each of the topics that's provided if you have additional technical questions. We're here. Our next webinars are going to be about how to write your proposal, evaluation criteria. We're also going to have commercialization webinars and the IP and data rights. And David, the university strategic pitched in an abstract for healthy interstate competition. I'm not familiar with that, David. Maybe Amanda or Casey can elaborate on that if they know, or if you have a link, that'd be great. And next slide. I think the next slide is on support. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the different resources on that slide with the chart on the process. So you've got the main site for the SBIR from the DOE. You've got all these webinars, and you've got the phase 0 application with Dawnbreaker that we just talked about. And look at the topics, and also go and investigate with each of the offices to see what's their mission, what's important. The topics do a lot of description, but there might be additional information that will help you when you're crafting your proposal and to tell your story. Next slide. And these are the emails that were provided for the water and the solar topics specifically. Next. Back to you, Casey.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sonia. So yes, we just want to include that the Department of Energy does run a wide array of commercialization programs that support innovators at various stages, from early stage ideas to manufacturing ready prototypes. Each program has different goals and application processes tailored to different technology readiness and business maturity levels. So in collaboration with the American-made program, Power Connectors may support DOE by providing recruitment, outreach, mentorship, and training to help new and existing applicants succeed across the continuum of DOE-funded innovation programs. So we are very thrilled to be a Power Connector and continue to help support innovators in all of these areas, specifically with the Department of Energy.